This stage is for underground artists, entrepreneurs, and game changers. The people you see selling CDs out of their trunks, hawking books on the side of the freeway, sacrificing time away from their kids, dumping their savings in their tanks and hitting the road. It's for the weirdos, trendsetters, alternative thinkers redefining the field with their alternative mindsets. Mics Uncut is a movement. It's about passion, sacrifice, believing in yourself when no one else does. Mics Uncut is for you. We all know who we are. And now, you will too. Welcome, Peoria. I'm Ahavah Mauré, and this is Mics Uncut. Our next guest is the quintessential woman for the people. If you live in Peoria or have any kind of social media presence at all, then you know her name. And if you don't know her name, it's because you've been living under a massive rock. At the tender age of 26, she became the youngest president of the Peoria Black Chamber of Commerce. And at the age of 28, she became the youngest board member. Her mentors include the CEO and president of the Illinois Black Chamber of Commerce, Mr. Larry Ivory, as well as Illinois State Senator, Mr. Chuck Weaver. She's a PR specialist, media specialist, and a self-made successful entrepreneur. She has served as director on many successful political campaigns, including Dorothy Brown, as well as campaigns including Corey Thomas for mayor and Benjamin Thornton for city council. She served in these roles as the board member for Change Peoria, a political grassroots organization that she helped establish. The main purpose of Change Peoria is to educate community members on voting issues, as well as candidates, and primarily to get out the vote. But her interests extend far beyond the political and campaign trail. She spearheaded many fashion projects and actually served as the regional publicist for former America's Next Top Model winner, Naomi Mora. But you know what they say, all work and no play. Just recently, she's made it her mission to master pole fitness and teaches a class on War Memorial at BU Fitness, encouraging healthy body images and fitness for women of all shapes and sizes. Having said all that, she couldn't stay away from her roots for too long. She's been featured on WEEK, WMBD, Good Morning Illinois, Peoria Journal Star, Peoria Magazine, and many others. Her resume goes on and on, so if you want to know more, you're going to have to check her out yourself. But right now, please help me welcome Miss Chama St.Louis. Thank you. Chama, where do you find the time, and what has been your most memorable project?
Where do I find the time? I don't know, because I don't have time. But I think it's just about maximizing my entire day. So just trying to make sure that every hour that I'm spending has some kind of purpose.
And that purpose mainly being to advocate for at-risk populations and spread awareness about social injustices.
Yeah, that's what I've kind of dedicated my life to.
Yeah.
And I really love people. I love being an advocate for people.
And where did that passion come from? I don't know how many people know this, but when you started at Peoria Black Chamber of Commerce, you actually started as the secretary and moved up the ranks in 6 years.
I started at the Illinois Black Chamber as the assistant. Mm-hmm. And then I moved up to executive assistant. And then from there, I moved up to the marketing and PR director. And the thing about the Illinois Black Chamber that I loved is that it allowed me the opportunity to kind of grow, right? Like as my knowledge base started to increase with the experience that I was gaining through the chamber, then I was able to take those things and build. And that kind of prepared me for all of the things that I'm doing now. So that was definitely something that laid the groundwork outside of obviously my family, you know, and my family values and stuff like that. But working, that was kind of what laid the groundwork for the work that I would go on to do.
What was that experience like? You held some pretty powerful roles, being the youngest member that they had seen to take these things on.
Yeah, I was I became the president at age 26 and the chairwoman at age 28. And it was an experience, right? Because you're coming into an organization. Most of the people who were already there were older than me. So it's just like trying to get people acclimated to listening to someone who's only 26.
New, fresh ideas.
Right, but also making sure I had that balance to where I could accept wisdom from the people who were already there. So
that's pretty powerful insight, to be open and receptive as well. So in your heart lies advocacy. Where did that influence come from? Was that already your life goals to pursue a career along this lines when you came into the Peoria Chamber of Commerce?
I think that it in part came from my parents, and then also my experiences. So unlike a lot of people, I was fortunate enough to have exposure as a child to like other areas, different types of people, and things like that. And I've always had parents who were extremely cognizant of like what was going on in society and what was going on in the world. So they were always talking to me about, you know, like current events and, you know, things like that. So that portion I would say came from my parents. And then when I went away to boarding academy, that kind of offered me a different type of exposure, especially because I made the number 10. I was the 10th Black person to be at the school. So everyone else was either white or Asian. And so just being dropped into that environment kind of also opened my eyes to the types of disparity that exists between when you grow up in affluent areas and you're one color versus living in a low income area and being another color. So I think it was a combination of those things, like my parents really instilling those type of values in me, and then also having that experience at such a young age to where I could clearly see disparities that made me like, okay, you know, like I want to do something about this. Like I want everyone to be able to have the opportunity to access, you know, the same level of education and, you know, to have equal access to the same types of job opportunities and things like that.
Do you feel like you have the support of the community on your side? So much of what you do is advocacy and grassroots work. Is there ever a moment where you feel like you're not on the right path or people don't support you?
Yeah. You know, I don't think that there's ever a moment where I feel like I'm not on the right path, because I truly believe that the path that I'm on is my destiny, right? It's where I'm supposed to be. And I believe that, you know, God puts us right where we need to be at the right time if we're listening to, you know, what it is that we're supposed to be doing. However, there are moments of discouragement, right? Because a lot of times what people don't understand about community work is that you work for a very long time to get a very small result, right? So you can be working on an issue, a piece of legislation, some policy to where you are, you know, on it day and night, mobilizing people, doing protests or demonstrations and rallies. And then you don't see the result of that until 2 years later, right? So in those time stretches, you could totally begin to feel discouraged.
Yeah.
And then you have seasons or waves, like I like to call it, where the community is super behind you on an issue, and then you have a wave where not so much, depending on what the issue is. I think the important thing is, regardless if this is what you feel if you feel like you're on the right side of justice, then you have to keep consistently pushing whether you have a ton of support at that time or not.
Right, well said. Let's talk about one of those discouraging moments. Just last year, you and your team at Change Peoria put that grassroots organization that you helped co-found on the map. You helped get out the vote and spread educate the community on the mayoral candidate, Corey Thomas, who they say had no political experience. He was a supervisor at a soup kitchen, and he lost by a mere 1,000 votes. What's even more interesting, being the first African-American male candidate in Peoria, assuming that our African-American constituents would have voted for him in our major district, District 1, he would have secured that election. You took that pretty hard.
Yeah, and you know, like as it relates to Change Peoria, I was actually recruited for Change Peoria.
Yeah.
Ryan Hidden started it, and he sought me out to join the board. So it was already going, but I've definitely contribute to a lot of the successes of Change Peoria.
Okay.
And so we decided as a team that we were going to run candidates, right? We had people coming to us saying they wanted to run for office, and we wanted to shake things up a bit, right? Like when you're not happy with the current state of affairs and the things that are going on in your city, it is up to the citizens to decide, you know, like they won't accept the things that they want to change the things that they can't accept, right? And so when Corey said that he wanted to run for office, I thought, absolutely, I'm going to support you, because here we have something that we hardly ever see, which is an African-American man wanting to step up and serve the people by way of politics, right? So we ran that race, and what was interesting about it is that we did what we did in 6 months, right? So
wow, it's a short time.
Yeah, typically when you're going to run for office, especially something like mayor, you want to have at least 2 years, and you want to have a background of like doing political work or something, right? So that you have a track record. So we were starting from scratch. And I think, you know, losing by only 1,000 votes is still a win, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
Because we had so many things we were up against. First, African American, no political background, and a 6 months time frame to do it. So thinking about what we were working with, we did a phenomenal job, but it was a little disappointing, right? Because this was an opportunity for the people to really protest with their vote, protest the current administration and say, you know, what you guys have been doing, we don't like. You know, it's not okay that Peoria is rated the worst place in America for blacks to live. Like, that's not okay. That was our opportunity to prove.
And that's a recent publication.
Right, exactly, yes. So that came out last year, and then this year we moved to number 2, but not because our numbers got better. Our numbers actually got worse. It's because another city got even worse.
Yeah, not something to be proud of. Right?
Exactly. So, but yeah, you know, it was disappointing because in District 1 alone, there's 11,615 registered voters, right? And District 1 is the area of town that is primarily African American. And so within the Black community, we have the power to determine the outcome of any election.
Yeah.
If we will go out and vote, we can select the mayor, all the council members, every single time. Anybody who sits in those seats would be people that we want every single time. So it definitely was a hard blow.
Roughly 10%, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Roughly 10% came out and voted. I mean, that's unbelievable.
And here's the thing, that is extremely low.
Yeah.
But that was higher than prior years, right? So it shows you where we were, you know, and like our how slow our progression is to catch up with everyone else. With that being said, though, we also are faced with a lot of other issues, right? Socioeconomic issues that other races aren't dealing with. So when we're trying to motivate people to get out and vote and do things politically, we almost have to like double and triple campaign. We have to work on a poverty issue, an education issue, and then once we've addressed those issues, try to get people to the polls, right? So it's like triple the amount of work that people in other areas have to do.
And you absolutely to this day still have the complex of minorities feeling like their vote absolutely does not matter. So you have to break through to that. You had some social issues like transportation, people calling you, telling you that they wanted to. You literally bus people yourself to the polls.
Yeah, we offer rides to the polls free of charge. And I think that's something, the first time I did that was 8 years ago. And it's just something every year that is kind of like, I just want people to vote.
Right.
So whether it's my own vehicle or, you know, however I have to do it, this is what I'm going to do to ensure that people who actually want to vote can vote. So, yeah.
Thank you so much. Do not move. I am sitting here with Ms. Chama St. Louis, boycott organizer, campaign director, self-made, successful entrepreneur, and we will be right back after this short break. Welcome back, Peoria. I'm Ahavah Mauré, and this is Mics Uncut. If you're just now joining us, I'm sitting here with the fabulous Chama St. Louis, and we were just talking about the billion hats that you wear. You've organized many boycotts. What are you currently engaged in?
So right now I am the community organizer for the Peoria People's Project, and that is an extension of the Grassroots Collaborative. So they decided to expand their footprint under the idea that we're stronger together, right, and to build unity. We are a community and labor coalition, and so we work together with community organizations and things like the Teachers Union and SEIU Healthcare around issues, to mobilize the community around issues that are affecting our kids in school and that are also affecting the community. So that's what I'm currently engaged in.
You have made great relationships with heavy hitters, and your reputation in a tremendously good way definitely precedes you. But that hasn't been the experience with every organization you've encountered. I mentioned earlier that you recently took up pole fitness, which is not to be confused with stripping. But some organization that you served on the chair of actually dismissed you because of the way you were choosing to express, empower women, express your femininity and your sexuality.
Yeah, I was actually the leader of a specific group. We'll just put it like that. Without actually saying what that group was. And they are very traditional in their beliefs. So they were very, women fit into this box and men fit into this box. And this is what women are supposed to do. And this is what men are supposed to do. And me being a rebel was kind of like, hold on, how you gonna tell me what I can and can't do? You know, or I was always raising those questions of, well, why do they get to do this and it's okay, but we can't do that and it's okay? And they basically told me, like, listen, this is what our organization does, and if you don't want to be within this box, then we're going to expel you. And I said, okay, and chose not to be within the box and to kind of do my own thing, and they expelled me. I don't have, you know, anything, I don't have any negative feelings about it. I think, you know, they kind of laid down the ground rules and it didn't agree with my spirit anymore. And so I had to part ways with the organization. So you definitely run into those types of things. I think now I've gotten it to the point where the things that I like to do, and we could talk about what I like to do, but which is pole fitness, and it's not to throw any shade at women who choose stripping as a profession, right? But for me, I just do it for fitness, I do it for fun, and I do it to empower women. So it's kind of like my hobby away from all of this stuff that I deal with that's so heavy all the time. So I have to have something that makes me think nothing about politics, nothing about the state of Black people, and it's just about building the self-confidence of women. So I have women of all races and ages, typically between the ages of 35 and 50 something.
Tell us how impactful and just how instrumental pole was in your life. You actually started that to address a back injury.
Yeah, I had a back issue, and I've been in physical therapy several times for it, and I'm still not quite sure what the problem was, but at some point it would get to the point where my husband would have to tie my shoes for me because my back was hurting me so bad. And I would have insomnia, anxiety, I couldn't sleep. And so I think any form of exercise kind of helps reduce those. But with pole, you're doing a lot of the things that you do in yoga. And I did pick up yoga for a while too. So you're twisting your body in a lot of the same ways that you do with yoga. And so you're stretching, you're pulling, the movements, you're aligning things. And before I knew it, they dismissed me from physical therapy because they said my strength had increased by 100%, my flexibility increased by 100%, my back strength increased by 100%, and there was no reason for me to be there anymore. And so, they basically told me to just keep doing what I'm doing.
Right. So, doctor's recommendations.
Yeah. So, and we would get in there, and they would like to watch my videos and stuff like that, and it's like, wow, how are you doing those things and things like that. But it's something that I like to do on the side, and I can't get into anything that is not going to positively affect someone in some way, though. So even when I decided to do pole fitness, I did it with the idea that if I got good enough at it, I wanted to be able to teach other women so that they can feel more confident about their bodies and they can get healthy too. So even when I was going into that journey, I had, this as an idea of what I wanted to do. And I think it's important that everything that I do it in a way to where it helps someone else, even if it is for my personal benefit.
Yeah. So. As an entrepreneur, you definitely have a lot more freedom as opposed to someone in a 9-to-5 who has to worry about the policies, regs, and all that. Are you concerned at all with your career, your affiliates and business partners, and the direction that you're going and the passion you have for pole? Are you worried about criticisms or those that might be less embracing of it or a little more narrow-minded?
I think if you live your life constantly worried about what is going to be acceptable to other people, you're going to be a miserable human being. Yeah. And I know from personal experience. So at this point, it's kind of like I cross those bridges when they come. And I think people who know me, people who see my work, people who see the totality of what I do, not just something I like to teach on the weekends, they know what I'm about, right? And I think people who prejudge are gonna prejudge whether I choose pole fitness or not. That's just in their character to do. So I don't think it really matters, right? Like there's always that perception that I could be doing something else that is socially unacceptable. But at the same time, there's always, whether you're walking the straight and narrow, or whether you're choosing to be a little bit of a rebel, there's always going to be those people who look at what you're doing and find something wrong. So I've just come to the point where it's like, I'm going to live my life. I'm going to be happy living my life. I'm going to love on my children and my husband. And as long as my family supports me and they have my back, then that's how I'm gonna proceed, right? Like, I'm gonna do what makes Chama happy, and in the meantime, help other people too. So
I think that is so admirable. I think you are literally extraordinary. You have clearly mastered the media, PR, and entrepreneurial arena, while also embracing your sexuality, expressing yourself, and staying true to your femininity. And not a lot of people, women, can do that because we are bound by that societal expectation. And I think it is so fierce how you manage both of those.
thank you. Yeah, it definitely took, it was a building process, right? Like, it wasn't just overnight that I decided I could get on a pole, you know, like people. So it didn't happen that way. I had to actually spend time in the community and build relationships with people and have some wins and some losses. And, you know, I created this atmosphere around the Chama brand where I was just going to be an open book, you know. So, and because I am an open book, then there is nothing that you can pull out of my closet, right? Like, I'm just who I am. I'm unapologetic about who I am. And I know my heart is pure. I know my intentions are pure. And no one can question the work that I'm doing. No one can, well, they can question it, but I mean, it doesn't stand, right? So if you have an issue because I decide I want to swing on a pole in my spare time, out of all the other things that you do, then I'm not the problem, right? Like, you're the problem. And I'm doing it with all my clothes on. So
I think this message is exactly why you've been invited to speak on all of the women empowerment summits and events that you've been invited on, speaking alongside the likes of Vivica Fox, spreading your message, empowering women, empowering minorities and communities, spreading awareness, education, the whole gamut. Literally, I don't know when you sleep, but we're so glad that you're here and you do what you do.
Thank you. And I think if my mom had it her way, I would get a lot more sleep and my schedule wouldn't be as jam-packed because, you know, she is very concerned about her baby getting the rest that she needs and having that family and quality time, right? So those things are definitely important. But when something is your passion and it burns inside of you, it's hard to like contain it, right? So it's nice to have people around me like my parents and my husband to keep me grounded and, you know, to try to help create balance.
There you have it, Peoria. PR media specialist, thriving self-made entrepreneur, advocate, and co-chair of the Illinois Black Chamber of Commerce Sports and Entertainment Committee, along with chair actor Harry Lennox.
Yes, and community organizer for the Peoria People's Project.
How did I forget that? Thank you so much, Chama. Hater, lover, you might even envy her, but you know her name. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
I'm Ahavah Mauré, and this is Mics Uncut.